Hotep Senuhana Senut Itiren Ishakanugu Kemet. The title of this video is Jewish-Panafricans Happy Kwanzaa. That's about 1 week before the Kwanzaa celebration starts, and it's important to inform people about some things that they probably don't know about. Where's the link? Well, first of all, let me check the sound. Microphone check. Sounds good. I'm sharing the link in the chat right now. And say, I didn't know about this article, and you can share it. Let's start. Molana Karenga's Haunting Ghost by Mukasa Africa Maat. A cult of personality and hero worship as overcompensation of black leadership deficient. Not deficient, but deficient. Attempting to escape the essential questions of history. Molana Karenga's Haunting Ghost. Dedicated to Dr. John Henry Clark, who said he has not atoned to the community for his attempt to destroy the Panther movement. He has not atoned for being a police informant. He has not atoned for the way he treated black women. Dedicated to Mwalimu Wesley Kabaila, who said, I write the following in the spirit of Ma'at and the truth embodied in it. I also write it as a matter of corrective history that has too long endured as lies. Introduction. Molana Karenga is the founder of Kwanzaa. He also supposedly began the US organization and developed the theory of Kawaida. He is the author of a number of culturally nationalist books and other writings. He is considered an internationally renowned leader of African people. He was a speaker and one of the key organizers of the historic Million Man March in 1995. He is one of the founders of ASCAC and has been an activist and academician for decades. The hero worshippers of Molana Karanga will be more than happy if I simply detail the above historic facts and ignore the ghost which has haunted the past of their leader. They will be more than happy if I, like them, ignore the fact of his dirty past. They will be pleased if I did not ask and address the essential questions which they so vainly attempt to delete from the pages of history. A Karenga fan once asked if I'd ever changed my stance on his leader. I told him I already did. I was once a fan like him. I never espoused Kawaida theory. I was never a member of the US organization, however. I was once a participant of Kwanzaa celebrations. I often quoted the works of Molana Karenga. I'd use his resources to prove a point in some discourse or historical debate. It was a long time ago. Thankfully, I've never been afraid to question, critique, and grow. Some people are okay with the superficial and misguided, while others, like myself, seek to always grow and stand on principles, even if that means speaking out against people we once admired. While some of us will question a leader, others who do not stand on principles will find all kinds of creative ways to excuse their leaders. Unacceptable and sometimes treacherous behavior against our people. I am not one of those people. My purpose is to inform the people so that they can make insightful decisions about whether they should to celebrate or worship in regards to my research and discussions on religions. I will not be silenced because I expose truth that others wish to sweep under the rug. We have this bad habit of not addressing the shortcomings or horrendous behavior of leaders, I'm sorry, because some fear we have a shortage of leaders. Well, we do have a shortage of leaders, but to not address the issues borders on treachery. No leader, religion, or topic is unquestionable. The African Conscious Movement must do a better job of informing our people on a number of issues and topics if we indeed the bringers of Ma'at truth. Cult of personality and hero worship. A cult of personality and hero worshipping has developed around Molana Karenga. Let us define a cult of personality and hero worship as related to Karenga. A cult of personality is when a person or a group develops unrealistic praise for an individual. They cease to honor the principles which someone and others might stand for, and instead they begin to honor and worship the person. The problem is that men are flawed, and when a cult of personality develops, the mind of the followers, the mind of the follower will find it very difficult to accept normal human faults. Additionally, when the leader has committed heinous crimes, the cult follower will not even hear such unspeakable ideas against their leader. This is when the cult of personality becomes hero worship, which is even more unrealistic, even more ridiculous, and even more dangerous. Hero worship develops when a cult of a person slash leader elevates them to the status of demigod. In some cases, the leader may even become God. Karenga has followers of varying degrees. Firstly, some are simply respectful of his intellectual work and they may or may not question his ghost and dirty past. Secondly, the next level up for Karenga are those who are ardent followers of one or more of the concepts associated with him, such as Kwanzaa or Kawaida. This third set of followers may or may not be partially engulfed in the next set of followers. The third group is made of the cult worshippers who not only leave Karenga's principles as part of their lives, but refuse to accept any questions of wrongdoing against him. Anyone who questions their cult leader must be doing the work of the white man or defaming a great black leader. By all means, Karenga is innocent of all charges against him. It was all COINTELPRO conspiracy against him. He didn't do it. This group is beyond the realistic and to reasonable trying to reasonable convince them or debate with them is a waste of time. The fourth or last group of followers are Karenga's hero worshippers who simply consider him near divine or even divine. These hero worshippers are the ones who will bow near to the ground and kiss his hand. Yes, this was a practice of members in the US organization. I am informed of this from people who actually witnessed his cult following hero worshippers kneeling, kissing his hand, and mumbling Molana, Molana, Molana. When I first posted this essay, I didn't look into the meaning of the name Molana beyond what Kuranga has always taught people. It means master teacher in Swahili. After reading the essay, Dr. Marimba Ani asked me if I knew the meaning of his name. Our discussion reminded me of a video I watched on a lecture given by John Herbert Clark, allowing me to explain what was revealed. The name Molana in Arabic means our Lord or our Master. It is in fact a title for Islamic leaders, not a name. Additionally, many who speak Arabic and are devout Muslims believe the title should not be used by any people since it is a designation of their God slash Allah. Karenga has taught people that the word Molana is a name which means master teacher in Swahili, and that is absolutely false. While in Senegal, Karenga was upset with John Herbert Clark because the Senegalese had elected Dr. Clark head of a group of respected African Americans due to his work over the years with them. According to Dr. Clark, Karenga approached him upset and said to him, "You don't know the definition of my name. Molana means God." This further establishes the cultist rituals, practices, and leadership of Karenga. When those US members were kneeling and kissing Karenga's hand, they were in fact mumbling, "Our God, our God, our God." A leader can have a cult of personality without having an actual cult organization or cult of rituals. Karenga has all three. I have categorized the cult of personality around Karenga in the above section. There are several ways in which his cult of organization, us, and his cult of rituals can be exhibited. Was us a cult organization? Well, you decide. Consider the above scenes reported to me about Karanga's weird ritual of his members bowing, kneeling, and kissing his hand and mumbling, "Our God." Imagine the young, impressionable brother in the late 60s kneeling down and kissing his hand, dressed like Karanga with dark shades on and head shaved like Karanga. Also, Karanga was and is, as far as I know, a polygamist. He will have his first wife sit down and tell prospective wives about the great deeds of Monana to convince them in their polygamous marriage. This I have established directly from a woman whom the wife attempted to seduce into the arrangement. Karanga has been seen out and about with his wives over the years. Besides the fact that polygamy is not a common practice in America, while common in some African cultures, it is against the law. It is but further evidence of a cult leader. I will discuss the cult rituals around Kwanzaa later. These rituals around the made up holiday also provides more evidence of a cult behavior built up around Karanga. Let us here address if there is evidence that Karanga was an FBI rat agent. Karanga, FBI agent with the anti-Panther mission? Karenga was financed and provided with guns and drugs by the FBI, according to confessed agent provocateurs and infiltrators Earl Anthony and Louis Stockwood, and suspected former agent provocateur and infiltrator Elaine Brown. Elaine Brown, herself an agent, says that Karenga was an agent in Taste of Power. She opens up about Karenga being an agent but does not come clean about herself. If you consider her willful, destructive behavior in the book, how she came to the party and sexed her way to the top only to cause division, the allegation of her being an infiltrator fits. Geronimo G. Jaga Pratt, in an open letter before his death, informed the public that Brown was a former agent, but it was misinformed about, but he was misinformed and thought Karenga was not. Both Brown and Karenga accuse anyone who calls them an agent of supporting COINTELPRO strategies of or J. Edgar Hoover type action against them. This is a deflection strategy common with agents and former agents. Karenga and his supporters have had to use this tactic much more than Brown. Both Brown and Karenga were agents. They have not confessed to their work against the movement like Earl Anthony and Louis Tackwood. Agent provocateur Earl Anthony's confessions are valuable in this regard. He admits his own dirt and so has little reserve, also mentioning Karenga's dirt. Anthony states that he was first informed of Karenga being an agent being supplied with weapons and given the mission to destroy the Black Panther Party in LA by FBI agents Robert O'Connor and Ron Kaczynski. Furthermore, a lot of inconsistencies with criminal prosecution and brutal treatment against the Black Panthers compared with that of Karenga's US organization speaks to him being an agent. The prime historical example of this is after the murders of Bunchy Carter's and John Huggins. The police didn't go after Karenga's US, they went after Black Panthers and conducted raids. Consider Anthony's spitting in the wind, which many question outside of one fact. The book is an uncut confessional of an agent provocateur. Anthony stands to gain nothing from his confession of himself and Karenga except he doesn't take his own dirt to the grave. Like Anthony, another former agent provocateur was Louis Tackwood, who came clean on his dirt, and many others in 1971. He also says that Karenga was an agent with an anti-Panther mission. Tackwood's word can be found in his glasshouse tapes. Tackwood's words are startling, but if any of it is true, he and Earl Anthony are correct pointing out the contemporary manipulation of Rat Karenga. Like Anthony, he has nothing to gain except as near to a clean conscience from his confession that he can get. Consider this quote from Brother Sechem in his 2006 article, The Intelligence Origins of Kwanzaa. Colton Westbrook, working with the LAPD Criminal Conspiracy Section and Division 5 of the FBI, used certain newly Africanized and modified recruits to set up two primary synthetic terror groups known as the US Organization with police agent Ron and Everett, aka Ron Karenga, and the SLA, or Cybernees Liberation Army, with police informer and provocateur Donald DeVries. According to CCS, police snitch and provocateur Louis Stackwood, Ron Karenga, and his us, later known as the United Slaves organization, were founded by the Ford Foundation, the LAPD, and his good friend Mayor Sam Yoti through municipal funds, financing to the tune of over $50,000 per year, plus two offices and five apartments, as indicated in the September 6, 1969 edition of the Black Panther newspaper. The Wall Street Journal revealed that Karenga maintained close ties to the Eastern Rockefeller family, and that a few weeks after the assassination of Malcolm Luther King, Mr. Karenga slipped into Sacramento for a private chat with Governor Ronald Reagan at the governor's request. The black nationalists also met clandestinely with Los Angeles Police Chief Thomas Redding after King had been killed. Louis E. Tackwood was a liaison man between Karenga and the Freeze and LAPD CCS division. Aptly named, the Criminal Conspiracy Section sole purpose and agenda was to target and destroy black militants and their organizations through conspiracies involving informers, Asian provocateurs, program assassins, and setup men, as well as militant synthetic terror groups to sabotage and discredit the African liberation movement in general. Through Tackwood, Ron Karenga, and his United Slaves, we should have known they were punks by their effing name alone, were given their assignments to work in opposition to other black groups within the black community, which attracted large numbers of blacks. Karenga was directly ordered to curtail the Panther Party's growth, no matter what the cost, and that no orangutan, CSS slang for us members. That's what we called his people, would ever be convicted of murder. Tackwood also stated that he provided Karenga with assassination orders from the FBI to kill Panther leaders Elmore Geronimo Pratt and apprentice Bunchy Carter. It is debated about whether us ever stood for United Slaves. That is not my debate. Karenga did meet with LA Police Chief Thomas Redding and Governor Ronald Reagan in supposedly an effort to help with the aftermath of riots following Martin Luther King's assassination and to discuss the imprisonment of US members. Karenga met with Police Chief Redding and then with Reagan at Reagan's request, as reported by Scott Brown in Fighting for Us. Brown also documented the torture of two black women by Karenga, which I will detail later. Karenga was very displeased with Brown's Fighting for Us and had his colleague Molefe Asante write a very lofty and flattering biography of him entitled Karenga, an intellectual portrait. Among other errors, Asante claims that Karenga was mentor to Jacob Hudson Carruthers on matters related to the study of Kemet, ancient Egypt. The opposite is true. While Karenga was in jail for kidnapping and torture of two black women, Carruthers was in Senegal meeting with Sheikh Anta Diop discussing the need to teach the history, literature, and culture of Kemet. Of course, Asante doesn't mention this fact. Asante gloats about Karenga being a founder of ASCAC, but it doesn't address the fact that Karenga's ego got him voted out of ASCAC in 1988. He was also removed from the Republic of New Africa in 1969. Members of the Black Radical Congress has long thought of him as an agent of the FBI. Asante did a biased, gloating, oftentimes false and very poor job on the facts about Karenga. Equally, Asante leaves out some other very critical history about Karenga, which I will address. Consider the following from the FBI's war on the Black Panthers. Consider the following from the FBI's War on the Black Panther Party's Southern California chapter. What gives some credence, though not proof, to the theory held by Brown and Anthony is that while the more conservative theory holds that the FBI was using each group against the other. The repression faced by the BPP was much more severe than that faced by the US organization. The pattern of killings described above is a case in point. Another is that the FBI opened a conspiracy investigation for Panther Geronimo Pratt for a bank robbery that the FBI knew had been committed by US members. Another example of police favoritism towards us is the initial police response to the killing of Carter and Huggins, which was not to go after the US organization or any other suspects in a murder, but instead to deploy over 150 police officers to raid a Panther apartment and arrest 75 Panthers, including the remaining Panther leadership, on charges of intending to murder US members in retaliation. Later, the police arrested US's Steiner brothers, Larry and George. The Steiners were given life terms and sent to San Quentin, but according to suspicions that US members were deliberately given light treatment, they walked away from a minimum security area on March 30, 1974. Larry Steiner turned himself in on February 5, 1994, while George Steiner remained a fugitive. Karenga met with Police Chief Redding and Governor Reagan at the time of forced imprisonment, agent infiltrations, and even assassinations of activists in California and America in general. Reagan called the home of Karenga for the meeting. Reagan would not call Karenga in 1968 unless the FBI had already sniffed him out, profiled him, and or put him on payroll. This was at the height of COINTELPRO operations. Governors don't meet with so-called radicals at the height of COINTELPRO to have tea. The events of the time gives much credence to confessions by Asian provocateurs and infiltrators Earl Anthony and Louis Stackwood, and among others such as Elaine Brown, that Karenga had an anti-Panther mission, was given guns, money, and drugs, and was an agent himself given a mission to destroy the Black Panther Party. The Kwanzaa cult and Jewish RBG candle lightning. I am African spiritual and practice African African rituals myself. A ritual is not cultist if it is authentically grown out of the tradition of a people. Cultist rituals are not the expressions of a people. Cultist rituals are non authentic expressions to bolster the personality worship of a particular individual or group. While Kwanzaa events have helped raise some African consciousness due less to Karenga and more to local activists, many who are not associated with many who are not associated with Karenga at all, the holiday can promote a superficial and even pseudo consciousness of African lifestyle. Karenga has been used to promote the personality worship of Karenga. Holly West interviewed Karenga in 1978 for the Washington Post and wrote the following: I created Kwanzaa, laughed Ron Karenga like a teenager who's just divulged a deeply held, precious secret. People think it's African, but it's not. I wanted to give black people a holiday of their own, so I came up with Kwanzaa. I said it was African because black people in this country wouldn't celebrate it if they knew it was American. Also, I put it around Christmas because I knew that's when a lot of bloods, meaning black, will be partying. The holiday is not authentically African, as Karenga said himself. The Jewish Hanukkah festival of lights begins on the 25th of the Jewish calendar in Kislev and lasts 8 days. It is roughly around Christmas on December 25th. A candle is burned each day with the servant or helper candle. This is strangely similar to the Kwanzaa lightning ceremony, where the servant candle is replaced with the black candle instead of 8 candles and the one helper candle. At the Jewish celebration, Kwanzaa uses 7 candles with the colors red, black, and green. I call them Jewish RBG. Candles, for this very fact, to note an African surface painting over a Jewish ritual. Many elders who celebrate Kwanzaa do so without the Jewish RBG candles. These elders instead pour libations, a time honored and unquestioned African tradition of thousands of years. We must be very serious about the rituals we pass down to our two generations. We must be very careful with who we call leaders. I will discuss more of the questions around Karenga's leadership in the next section. The Kwanzaa lightning celebration, with 7 principles over 7 days, although performed out of sincerity by countless blacks, is a copy of the Jewish festival of lights of 8 days. Due to this very reason, it is more courteous than it is African. We learn as much from Kurenga laughing like a teenager in 1978. At the very minimum, this Jewish lightning ceremony should be eliminated to gain some respectability among the holiday's participants. The stance of Madibu Wesley Kabaila, separating the message from the messenger, a middle ground or middle of nowhere. Madibu Wesley Kabaila has been a member of the US organization from 67 to 85. He was Kurenga's bodyguard, a proponent of Kawaida since 67 and a promoter of Kwanzaa virtually since the beginning. He was a vice chairman of the US organization and chairman of the Simba Wachanga from 79 to 85. Kabaila was Karenga's strong arm man and one of his most loyal students and dedicated followers. He is not as well known as Molana Karenga, but nonetheless, Kabaila is truly a historic figure and played a major role in the development and promotion of the organization, US. The philosophy of Kawaida and a widespread acceptance of the holiday. Furthermore, I am aware of no allegations against him, such as those heinous crimes committed by Karenga. Additionally, he seems to be a man of characters. He seems to be a man of character for reasons I will address in this section. He has raised concerns which should be addressed on the subject. Before addressing the matter, I'd like to further establish the historic significance of Malibu Kabaila. In my correspondence with him, he stated the following about some of the struggles he faced in the movement. I have sent for my FBI file and know they were following me and reporting. Also, after the Black Power conference in '68 in Philly, I and two other Simbas went to Newark to help in organizing the Committee for a United Newark with the BCD, the Black Community Defense, which was based in Montclair and East Orange. During my stay there, I mostly stayed at Amiri Baraka Spirit House. During that period, the Italians in power in Newark had a spirit house shut up. When Rah retaliated, the Italians never messed with us again. We were protected by the God. After 3 months, I returned to LA. The next day, my parents called me to say that the FBI had come to their house in NJ and asked about my involvement in us, saying we were for overthrow of the government. What really scared my parents was that the agents brought up my parents' involvement in the Paul Robeson movement back in 46, 47. I hadn't even known that, as my parents never talked about it before. The FBI also went to my wife's job, harassed her, and tried to get her fired. Kabaila's voice must be part of the dialogue in Karenga and the US organization. As of yet, he is not cited as much as should be the case. Besides a few lines in a book or two, I was not very aware of Kubaila or his contributions until he released a brief but historically crucial open letter admonishing Kuranga on two key points and noting a lesson on leadership on a third. These are the key points in his open letter. In his open letter. One, he states that Kurenga should be honest about the fall of the US organization, not because members left him, but due to his imprisonment from criminal behavior with Deborah Jones and Gail Davis. Two, he admonishes Kurenga to come forward, atone, and apologize for his treatment of women. Kabaila also mentions Kurenga locking up his first wife in a tiger cage and attempting to rape another woman. He admonishes Kurenga to atone for these wrongs against black women. 3. Kabbalah argues that there are lessons on leadership from this critical history that must be passed on to future generations. I fully agree with Mwalimu Kabbalah on the three above points, which he notes in his open letter. Karenga should atone for his wrongs and criminal behavior towards the sister he has mistreated and especially those he has assaulted. He should apologize to the community and definitely to those he victimized. I also agree with Kabbalah regarding the matter being a lesson of leadership for future generations. It takes courage for a person to speak out against someone whom they held in such high esteem. Kabbalah was personally responsible for the safety of Karenga as his bodyguard for years and would have given his life to save Karenga's. I applaud him for coming forward in the name of Ma'at, truth, to encourage Karenga to have higher standard for his own behavior and disclose what happened. Of course, I disagree with Kabbalah about the significance of Kwanzaa to African people. He argues that it has a role in our liberation struggle and points to the millions of people who celebrate the holiday. I argue it is a stepping stone at most and must be altered to take out the Jewish influence or left entirely. My above section on Kwanzaa rituals explain that reasoning in detail. Kabbalah states that I'm sorry. Kabbalah states that Kwanzaa was a collective creation of the US organization and not just Karenga's. I have no argument with that matter, but it will very well benefit the reputation of Kwanzaa if it was less associated with Karenga and more associated with the US organization as a collective. Right now, it is not. On the other hand, Kabbalah stops short of calling Karenga a rat agent or rapist as his bodyguard of 20 years unless he personally witnessed certain things. It's not surprising. I'm not surprised that Kabbalah would not like to believe certain things happen. Well, he says, I concede Karenga, he is a liar, a megalomaniac, a torturer, and a sexist who also has exhibited diabolical behavior. He does not say he was an agent or rapist. In fact, he states unequivocally in his open letter that no one in the inner circle of the US organization were agents. Kabbalah is also of the opinion that Elaine Brown was not an agent, in spite of the convincing letter of Geronimo G. Jagger Pratt laying out her actions as what he considers to be an agent. This is also in spite of her own damning autobiography, Taste of Power. This is another point where I part ways with Kabbalah. Yet, I must say, I believe I understand his middle ground stance. I think because Kabbalah was an eyewitness to a lot of the hurt from that era, he's very cautious with identifying people as agent of COINTELPRO. Although the term itself seems to annoy him, he has acknowledged in my correspondence with him that he is convinced that agents did operate on the periphery of the us. On the periphery of us, not the inner circle, and in the movements of other organizations. My take is that he feels we should be focused on the struggle ahead for our people instead of seeking out evidence of agent activity from the past. While this is an admirable middle ground stance, agents did exist in the US organization, the Black Panther Party, and every other organization worth any note in the 60s and 70s. That is why I agree with him on his major points in his open letter. Disclosure of wrongs done may begin healing some wounds that time has not. Agents need to disclose their activity as well, like Earl Anthony and Louis Stackwood, who also disclosed information about Karenga. On Kabbaila's third point regarding leadership lessons for future generations, I equally I'd argue can only be enhanced with knowing who worked as COINTELPRO agent and who did not. Although Kabbalah was his personal bodyguard, Karenga had time for meetings with Tackwood or other agents outside of Kabbala's presence. The FBI would have considered Kabbalah a threat if he was uncompromising and couldn't offer them anything new that it could already get from Karenga. A much more valuable risk. History has shown that Kabbalah was not an agent. Of course, G. Jaga was simply not around Karenga enough to establish that he was or wasn't an agent. Kabbalah takes his admirable middle ground of reconciliation on these matters. While he admonishes Karenga to come forward for his wrongs, he also does not say that Karenga raped Davis and Jones, noting they didn't testify about rape then or say anything of its sins. That, however, is not sufficient evidence that the crime didn't happen. Kabaila does say that the women were held for 3 weeks and not 2 days, as is widely believed from court testimony. However, the court transcripts have miraculously disappeared. My argument has been that the women were raped and threatened or persuaded to only admit to torture and kidnapping over 2 days instead of 3 weeks, which could I'm sorry, instead of 3 weeks, which would result in a shorter sentence for Karenga. How could he get away with a short sentence for such heinous crimes? How could he not have rape charges brought against him and have what was a 3 week hostage/torture situation turn into 2 days? Karenga was found guilty on only 2 counts of felonious assault and 1 count of forced imprisonment. That would not have happened if the testimony of 3 weeks kidnapping torture would have entered the court. How could he get away with that unless he was an agent supported by the FBI's COINTELPRO, as reported by former agents? There are other questions as well which point to Kiranga being a protected FBI agent. For instance, Kabaila's letter establishes even more so a pattern of sick and depraved behavior by Karenga. Anyone as sick as Karenga will have no problem with also being an agent against a movement in which he was supposedly a leader. Why would the court transcript come up missing? Why would the transcripts disappear like smoke into thin air as made of rat? They have been deleted from the pages of history, never to be seen again. How often do you hear of court documents coming up missing in which you have the graphic statements of victims? All right, I'm going to do part 2 tomorrow. Stay safe, stay healthy. I don't argue, I state facts. If you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. Hotep.
Now, for the record, for those who don't know, I'm giving medical nature classes. And here, that's the flyer. Okay? So, those who are interested, feel free to holler at me. If you're not interested, it's cool. But I recommend that everybody who has not yet seen the video, Kemet and Ma'at, before Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, then watch it. It has about 300,000 views and really deserves to have a lot more. I just want to let everyone know who's listening in now and who's going to listen to this stream in the future. I just had my first Meta class by Brother Shaka today, and I've had other Meta lessons by other teachers, and I can tell you right now, the brother is the best in the game. He is that was one of the best classes I've ever had, ever. So if you're interested in learning the Meta, if you're interested in getting the basics of it, Brother Shaka is an awesome teacher. Get with him, and it's extremely affordable. This brother is giving us his time and his skills, and he's basically giving it away. I mean, I just consider it a donation. You know what I'm saying? So if anybody's interested in learning the Meta, get with this brother right here. He's an awesome teacher. And I'll end with that.
Hotep Senu, Hena Senut. This is Julie, also known as Servant of Yah, and I'm currently taking the Medunetia classes with Brother Shaka, and it has been an amazing experience. Only 2 lessons so far, and I feel like I've been taking the classes for months, just with the how in depth he goes into the vocabulary words, the construction of the language, the grammar, It's been immeasurable, the experience. And one thing that comes across, hands down, is his extreme passion for teaching this to anyone who is willing to learn and has an interest in learning. So I highly suggest, if you are interested, even a minimal interest, that you subscribe to the classes with Brother Shaka. It's such a nominal amount for how much you get. I know, like, our last class was over 2.5 hours. It felt like 2 minutes, but because that's how, involved you are in what he's teaching and how he teaches and how compassionate he is about what he teaches. Also with sharing materials free of charge. No question, no doubt. It's just what he does. He doesn't have to, but he does. And so I just wanted to give a short testimonial about the class and the effectiveness of the class. And all of that is attested to how studied Brother Shaka is. So I highly recommend anyone with a minimal interest that you do sign up for the Medu Netia class. Hotep.
Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, which is Ma'at Forever. Don't forget to watch the video entitled Kemet and Ma'at. Don't forget to share Kemet and Ma'at on my channel on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, or other social media that you use. Email, text messages, you name it. Those who wish to donate can do so on paypal.me/ma'atforever.